It was never about the murders, the bloodshed, the screams. That was just the symptom. The infection was the house itself. We learned that on our first night. My 7-year-old daughter, Lily, she saw it first. She stood at the top of the stairs, pointing down into the living room, her little hand trembling. "Daddy," she whispered, "who's the pig man in the corner? Why are his eyes so red?" I looked. The corner was empty, but the air there was cold. So cold it felt like a void. And I could smell it, the stench of old blood and wet fur. That was the moment I knew the realtor had lied. The Suttons didn't just die here. Something else moved in after. And it was hungry for a new family. We were desperate. The market was insane, and our budget was a joke. When our realtor, Brenda, showed us the Victorian on 421 Harvest Lane, it felt like a miracle. It was sprawling, with a mansard roof and a wraparound porch, all for a price that seemed like a typo. "Motivated seller," Brenda had said, her smile a little too tight. The previous owners left in a hurry. That was the understatement of the century. A month before, Ronald Sutton had murdered his entire family, his wife and 3 teenage boys, with a shotgun before turning it on himself in the master bedroom. The papers called it a tragedy of unimaginable proportions. The neighbors called it that house. We called it our only chance. My wife, Sarah, was hesitant. "Are you sure about this, Mark? The history—" "It's just history, honey," I'd said, kissing her forehead. "We'll make new memories. We'll cleanse the space with love and light." I was so naive. Lily, however, was ecstatic. She loved the big, overgrown yard and the tree with the tire swing. She claimed she had an invisible friend waiting for her here named Jodie. We thought it was a child's imagination. The first oddity happened during the move-in. The grandfather clock in the hall, which we were told hadn't worked in years, suddenly chimed. Not the gentle bong of timekeeping, but a single, jarring metallic clang that shook the dust from its casing. It was 3:15 in the afternoon. We settled in, or we tried to. The house had a personality. It was sullen, resentful. Doors would stick shut, then swing open on their own. The plumbing groaned like a dying animal, and it was always perpetually cold in the basement and that one corner of the living room, no matter how high we cranked the heat. The first true violation happened a week in. I woke up to the sound of footsteps, heavy, booted footsteps, pacing the hallway right outside our bedroom door. Thud, drag, thud, drag. My heart froze. I shook Sarah awake. "Mark, it's just the house settling," she mumbled, half asleep. But then we heard it, a voice, low, guttural, speaking in a language that was all rasps and growls, coming from just the other side of the door. It wasn't words. It was pure, malevolent intent. I grabbed the baseball bat from beside the bed, my hands slick with sweat. I flung the door open. The hallway was empty, but the floor was wet. A trail of muddy footprints, reeking of the swampy river behind our property, led from the top of the stairs to our door and stopped right there. Sarah saw them too. Her hand flew to her mouth. We didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, Lily's drawings changed. Gone were the smiling suns and rainbow houses. Now, she drew our home in black and red crayon. A tall, hulking figure with the head of a boar and blazing red eyes stood at the windows. In every picture, she was in her room, and the thing was outside, watching. She titled them all the same way, in her clumsy block letters. Jodie's free end. Sarah's nerves were fraying. She started seeing things in her peripheral vision. A shadow that was too tall. A shape that moved just as she turned her head. She complained of constant headaches and a smell of rot that seemed to follow her from room to room. The final straw for our peace of mind was the flies. They appeared on the second Tuesday, a small cloud of them, big, green-black, and noisy, clustered on the kitchen window. No matter how many we killed, more came. They were drawn to that one, perpetually cold corner of the living room. Exterminators found nothing. There was no source, no carcass. They just manifested. I was still trying to hold on to my rationality. It's an old house, Sarah. It's drafty. The flies are from the river. But then I saw it myself. I was working from home, typing at my desk in the study, when I felt a presence behind me. A crushing weight of dread settled on my shoulders. The room temperature plummeted. I slowly turned in my chair. In the gloom of the corner, the shadows congealed. They thickened, pulling away from the wall, forming a silhouette that was massive, swine-headed, and bristling with an unseen fury. It had no discernible features, just a shape of pure darkness and two pinpricks of hellish red light where its eyes should be. It lasted only a second. Then it was gone. But the stench remained. The foul odor of a slaughterhouse on a hot day. I ran from the room, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. I couldn't explain it away. I had seen the pig man. Our dream home was a waking nightmare, and we were trapped inside it. Denial is a powerful shield, but reality is a sharper sword. After seeing the pig man, my skepticism shattered. The house knew it. It was as if we had passed some unspoken test of perception, and now it could stop hiding. The phenomena intensified, becoming more aggressive, more personal. It started targeting Sarah. She would wake up with deep, purple bruises on her arms, like finger marks. She began sleepwalking, something she'd never done before. I'd find her standing in the basement, staring at the concrete wall, mumbling about the well. She had no memory of it in the morning, only a profound exhaustion and a growing terror in her eyes. Her vibrant spirit was being systematically drained, replaced by a hollow, twitchy anxiety. Lily's relationship with Jodie became more disturbing. Her invisible friend was no longer benign. She'd have screaming matches with empty rooms, her little face contorted in rage. "Jodie says you have to leave," she'd shriek at us. "Jodie says this is her house. She's going to make you go away, like the other boys." The other boys. The Sutton sons. We tried to get her to a child psychologist, but she'd throw tantrums so violent we couldn't get her into the car. It was as if the house itself was preventing her from leaving. I decided to investigate. I went to the local library and dug through microfiche of old newspapers. The history of 421 Harvest Lane was a litany of misery. Before the Suttons, an entire family in the 1920s had died of Spanish flu within a week of each other. Before that, the original owner, a reclusive ship captain named John Hatchett, had reportedly dabbled in the occult. Local legend said he'd built the house over a sacred indigenous burial ground, angering the spirits, and had tried to contain them with his own dark rituals. He was found dead in the basement in 1898, his body torn apart. The official cause listed as a wild animal attack. No animal was ever found. The house wasn't just haunted. It was a spiritual wound, a place where the veil between worlds was thin and tattered. John Hatchett hadn't contained anything. He'd opened a door. And the thing that came through, the entity the Suttons, and now my daughter called Jodie, was a predator that fed on suffering. Armed with this horrifying knowledge, I confronted the basement. It was the heart of the darkness. The cold down there was unnatural, a deep, soul-sucking chill. The smell of damp earth and decay was overpowering. In the far corner, partly obscured by old paint cans, I found it. A small, rusted metal door set into the foundation, like an old coal chute. It was locked with a heavy, modern padlock. The Suttons had put it there. Using bolt cutters, I snapped the lock. The door swung inward with a groan of protesting metal, revealing not a coal chute, but a narrow descending staircase carved directly into the earth, a hidden root cellar. The air that wafted out was ancient and foul. I descended, my flashlight beam trembling. The room was small and circular. The walls weren't dirt. They were covered in symbols, crude, terrifying carvings of demonic faces, inverted crosses, and a recurring stylized boar's head. In the center of the floor was a dark, rust-colored stain that had soaked deep into the earth. An altar. This was John Hatchett's ritual space. This was the source. As I stood there, paralyzed by horror, a voice whispered from the darkness right behind me. It was a little girl's voice, sweet and high, but layered with an ancient, venomous hate. "Daddy," it whispered, mimicking Lily's tone perfectly. "Will you play with me forever?" I spun around. The staircase was empty. But from upstairs, I heard my real daughter scream. I scrambled up, taking the steps 2 at a time. I burst into the kitchen to find Sarah clutching a sobbing Lily. All the cabinets and drawers were wide open, their contents flung across the room. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. On the wall, written in what looked like black paint, but smelled of rotting meat, was a message. "Get out." Sarah looked at me, her face a mask of pure terror. "It wasn't like this before, Mark," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It was watching us." I felt it. It's tired of playing games. We packed a bag that night. We weren't going to wait for morning. We would sleep in a motel, figure it out later. As I carried our suitcase to the car, I saw him. Across the street, standing under a street lamp, was the gaunt figure of Ronald Sutton, or what was left of him. He was translucent. his face a mess of grief and shotgun pellets, his eyes hollow. He looked directly at me, and slowly, mournfully, he shook his head. It was a warning, a plea. Then he was gone. We got in the car. I turned the key. The engine clicked. Dead. The battery, which had been fine hours before, was completely drained. The front door of the house slammed shut with a force that shook the foundation. A child's laughter, sweet and cruel, echoed from inside. We were not allowed to leave. Trapped. The word took on a new, horrific meaning. Our cars were dead. Our phones had no signal. The landline emitted only a continuous, high-pitched shriek. The house had severed our ties to the outside world. We were in its belly, and it was beginning to digest. The entity, Jodie, no longer bothered with subtlety. It wanted Sarah. That night, a change came over my wife. Her posture straightened, her gentle features hardening into a cold, alien mask. Her voice, when she spoke, was a hybrid of her own and the little girl's voice we'd come to fear. "She's so much stronger than the last one," the thing using Sarah's mouth said, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "So much more light to snuff out." It was referring to Margaret Sutton, Ronald's wife. This thing didn't just haunt, it consumed, wearing its victim's energy like a trophy. I tried to reason with it, to plead. "Leave her alone. Take me." Sarah's head tilted at an impossible angle. "You? You're just a battery. She is the prize." Lily was catatonic with fear, curled in a ball on the sofa, whimpering. The house itself seemed to be closing in. The walls pulsed, the shadows writhed. The fly infestation exploded until the windows were black with their buzzing bodies. Driven by desperation, I remembered the local priest, Father Callahan, whom I'd seen in town. I had to get to him. I'd make a run for it, on foot. It was 5 miles to the church. I had no other choice. "Stay with your mother," I whispered to Lily, though I knew it was a futile command. I unlocked the front door and sprinted into the night. The woods surrounding our property felt alive and hostile. Branches clawed at my face. I heard the sound of something large and heavy crashing through the undergrowth behind me, keeping pace, snorting like a beast. The stench of the pigman followed me, a miasma of corruption. I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned, bursting out of the tree line and onto the main road. I didn't stop until I reached the small, white-steepled church, pounding on Father Callahan's door until he answered, his face shifting from annoyance to grave concern as he saw my wild-eyed, disheveled state. I poured out the story in a frantic, jumbled mess. The murders, the cold spots, the pigman, the possession. He listened patiently, but a deep sadness filled his eyes. "The Sutton House," he said softly. "I warned Ronald." I told him the evil in that place was structural. "It's not a ghost you can bless away, son. It's a demonic infestation, an ancient, territorial intelligence. The church will not sanction an exorcism there. The risk is too great." "Then what do I do?" I begged, my voice cracking. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "You get your family and you run. You run and you never look back. Some places are not meant for the living. They are wounds on God's earth. You cannot heal them. You can only flee. Defeated and terrified, I ran back. The journey home was a blur of dread. As I approached the house, I saw that every window was now glowing with a sickly, pulsing red light. A low, chanting hum vibrated through the ground. I burst through the front door. The scene in the living room froze the blood in my veins. Sarah was on the floor, contorted into a painful-looking arch. Her eyes were rolled back in her head, showing only the whites. Lily was standing over her, but it wasn't my daughter. Her expression was one of ancient, gleeful malice. "She's almost ready," the thing inside Lily said. "Jodie is hungry. It's time for the new family to take their place." It pointed a finger at the wall. The blood-red words had changed. They now read, "Welcome home." I roared, charging towards them, driven by a primal need to protect my family. But as I crossed the threshold of the living room, an invisible force slammed into me, throwing me back into the hallway. I hit the wall with a sickening crunch, my vision swimming. Through blurred eyes, I saw Sarah's body rise from the floor, levitating. Her head slowly righted itself, and when her eyes opened, they were solid, glossy black. She smiled at me, a predator's smile. "The man failed," she said, her voice a chorus of nightmares. "The father broke, but the mother is so much stronger. She will be my new vessel. We will be a family again, for eternity." The pigman materialized in the corner, no longer a shadow, but a solid, stinking mass of muscle and rage, its red eyes burning with triumph. It took a step towards me. This was how the Suttons died. Not from a sudden, mad violence, but from a systematic, spiritual dismemberment. Ronald hadn't snapped. He had been pushed, cornered, and broken, until pulling the trigger was the only act of mercy left to him. I had failed. The house had won. I don't know how I escaped. I remember the shattering of glass. I remember the sound of sirens. A neighbor, a full mile away, had seen the pulsating red light and called the police. They found me crawling through the broken bay window, my arm broken, babbling incoherently. They found Sarah and Lily inside. They were alive, but they were empty. Their bodies were there, breathing, their hearts beating. But the lights were out. Their minds had been utterly shattered by the trauma. They are in a specialized psychiatric facility now, lost to a catatonia that no doctor can explain. They don't recognize me. They just stare. The official report lists me as a suspect, but there was no evidence of foul play. Just a broken man and a broken family in a house with a bad reputation. The case is still open. I sold the house for a massive loss to a property developer who didn't believe in ghosts. He planned to bulldoze it and build condos. The day the wrecking ball was supposed to swing, the operator had a sudden, fatal heart attack. The project was abandoned. The Sutton House still stands. It's boarded up now, darker and more silent than ever. A rotten tooth in the mouth of the neighborhood. I visit Sarah and Lily every week. I hold Sarah's limp hand and tell her about my day. I read Lily her favorite stories, hoping for a flicker of recognition. There is none. But sometimes, late at night, when the hospital is quiet, I see it. A shadow in the corner of Lily's room that is too tall, too solid. And I catch a whiff of it on the air, just for a second. The unmistakable, gut-wrenching stench of old blood and wet fur. They didn't get to keep their new vessels, but they kept their prize. They took my family's souls. And the house is still hungry. It's always hungry. It's just waiting for the next desperate family, the next dreamers who think they can outrun history, who believe that evil is just a story. It's not. It's real. It has a name, and it lives at 421 Harvest Lane.